Hi, my name's Mark. I have a rare autoimmune disease called CIDP. It stands for Chronic Inflammatory Demyelinating Polyneuropathy. And this is my story. So I was diagnosed in May of 2019 with a rare autoimmune disorder called Guillain Barre Syndrome, otherwise known as GBS. And then I had several reoccurring relapses throughout the year that later in December they diagnosed me with CIDP. So the first symptom I recall was, this was in May of 2019, and I want to say it was like the 21st or something like that, but it was like a Monday, and my feet were like, I thought my shoes were too small, and I just hadn't fully like realized what was happening, obviously, and I came to work, and I just thought, oh, my shoes feel kind of tight, and now looking back, it was just the way the disease works is it starts from your outermost limbs, and your nerves are slowly demyelinating, and so you start to tingle and go numb. So my feet went numb, and then my hands went numb, and then I started to wobble and get really weak. All of those symptoms, initial symptoms, happened within a week before going to the hospital. So in May of 2019 is when I was first admitted to Tri-City Hospital. There I spent 10 days doing a therapy called plasma exchange, or plasmapheresis, I think is the technical term for it. It's kind of like dialysis, where they exchange the antibodies in the plasma with like a synthetic version to help slow the symptom or the progression of the Guillain-Barré. Then in about 4 weeks later, I had another relapse, or my first relapse, where the symptoms just came back fierce, and I could barely get up. I kept falling everywhere, and that's when we went to the ER at UCSD, where I was admitted. I stayed there for I think about 10 days, and did another therapy called IVIG. It's where they put an IV in, and it's donated antibodies, and it acts as a therapy to slow progression. I was in such bad shape they wouldn't let me go home, and they required me to go to rehab back at Tri-City. So I went to the rehabilitation center at Tri-City for I think around 3 weeks, and I was in such bad shape I couldn't get out of bed without help. I couldn't walk. It was rough. I had to learn how to do everything all over again. But after the end of the 3 weeks, I was determined the only way they'd let me leave is if I walked like, I think it was like 100 feet with a cane. And so I finally got to that point, and then was able to go home, which was, probably not the best thing to do, but mentally it was for sure the best thing to do. And then in December is when I had my third relapse that came just so fierce, where I developed this autonomic nerve dysfunction where I just started fainting. So that is when I went to Scripps and spent about, I think, around 5 or 7 days at Scripps doing an IVIG treatment. What have I learned about myself? So I think when I was in December, when I got out of the hospital and was then diagnosed with this chronic version, this CIDP, we knew that this idea of moving on just wasn't the full answer that we thought it was previous. We knew this was going to be like a lifelong pursuit now. And so I think my wife and I became determined to go on the offense with this whole mess. Previous to this, it was like, everyone was telling us it was going to be okay and it was going to go away. And now we realized we were in this for the long run. So I think that sparked something in me where before I felt like everything was outside of my control. I was just this victim to this disease. And I think my wife and I both had this determination to take back what we could inside of our control. And it felt good to feel like I could fight back. And so we went for it. We had a recommendation to go see a naturopathic doctor that practiced like nutritional medicine and homeopathic medicine. And so we met with her, and it really changed our perspective of what we could do ourselves rather than going down the typical common medicines and therapies that you'd get from a neurologist. So that for me was everything, because I was immediately put on a really strict diet, and I was perfect at it. I was so determined that this was the answer that I wouldn't even look at something with sugar. I cut out sugar, I cut out gluten, I cut out dairy, I cut out like most fruit for a while, and I was just so determined that I was going to make this happen. And it was hard for at first, because obviously I'd never done anything like that before. And then I started taking a lot of supplements, and I started doing a lot more physical therapy on my own. And I think my mindset really changed. I was like, I am determined to take back what I can for as long as I can. So I think that really changed my mindset in just trying to take back what I can control. But there's no doubt that I want to say the one thing I learned is patience, but it's hard to say that's probably not the case, because it's really hard to be patient with. When you're there's a lot of neuropathy pain that's there all the time. It's hard to sleep, it's hard to be patient because you're kind of on edge all the time. So it's been something that's been really trying for our family, because I'm never, I haven't been the easiest person to be around sometimes. So, but I think for myself, and for my wife, and for our little family, we've been through a lot, but we've also grown a lot. And so, asking what I've learned, I really hope on the other side of this, we'll look back and we'll say, wow, look what we went through and look where we are now. So that's something I'm really looking forward to. So, why HSCT? I first learned about HSCT as a viable cure-all treatment when I was first diagnosed with CIDP in December of 2019. I joined a Facebook group of people who have CIDP and started learning about different treatments they do. So I knew that HSCT was something that people do, but it just seemed like this really serious treatment that I just wasn't at the time ready to, mentally not ready to go for. So I kind of decided that, let's see how we do with our plan, and which was, our plan was to go the naturopath route and focus on the diet, focus on living a really extremely healthy life, and see where that takes us. So for the better part of this last year, I was really good at following that diet regimen, and it worked. I mean, I was doing a lot better. A lot of my symptoms had slowed down, mellowed out, but I wasn't getting better. A lot of the drugs I was taking, the different drug therapies that are available, I went through so many of them, pretty much all of them, and they would help for some time, and then everything would plateau. And so And then I started researching HSCT more. So what HSCT is it's a stem cell transplant, meaning that it kind of looks something like this, where the first week they harvest your stem cells, and then the following week you do a round of chemotherapy with the goal of ablating your immune system down to 0, so there's no memory of this chronic disease anymore. Which obviously sounds terrible in being the person to do that. And then after chemo, they transplant your stem cells back in and kind of bring you back to life. And so obviously it's a really serious treatment, but the success rates are like through the roof. I kept finding research papers and connecting with people who had done it and said if it should be the first thing you do, meaning that they wish they'd have done it sooner. And I think the success rates, like for my disease specifically, is in like the 90% range. And so I started really thinking about it because I was just ready to like try something else because nothing else was working. So when we kind of decided that we wanted to have another child, I kind of really thought about this, like this might be the answer. And it's a hard decision to sign up for something like that because it's not FDA approved for my disease specifically in the US yet. They use it for several other diseases like MS, which is kind of the closest autoimmune disease to mine. There's several studies and clinical trials going on for my disease in the US, but they're extremely hard to get into and cost a ton of money. I was trying to get in one in Denver, and the wait list was extremely long. And so then we connected with Clínica Ruiz down in Monterrey, Mexico, who I connected with several people that had gone and done it and couldn't speak highly enough about it. So started a screening process with them and decided, you know what, I think I should go for it. I got a slot April 5th, which is, I'm leaving tomorrow on Easter Sunday. And we'll be there for 4 weeks. And I'm lucky enough to have my mom and my sister, Michelle, come and be my caregivers with me. And I know it's gonna work because I'm going in on a high. I'm doing really well, it's just one of those things where I'm so excited for it to just to end and to see what's on the other side of this disease. And the recovery's long. The recovery's several months, up to a year even. So, but it's an easy decision because of what it promises, and that the success rate is just so high. So I'm really looking forward to it. I've decided that I needed to document this experience. So with this initial interview, we're gonna, try to like show more of what it looks like throughout the treatment. I'm sure it's gonna get a little ugly and a little wild for me. So we'll, do our best to communicate what's going on. So check out my Facebook blog, and look forward to sharing the experience with you.